Goji here with my second kaiju movie review. So, with Godzilla vs. Kong quickly approaching, and since my channel is fairly new, I thought I'd share my thoughts on the first Godzilla movie, Gojira. So the film was inspired by a post-war Japan climate that really gives us a feel of how the Japanese felt during these times. It was a rough, disturbing time, as they were also trying to recover from the war and the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This movie is, or at least I think it still is, an anti-bomb response to the United States roughly 9 years after the events. With the director Ishiro Honda being a prisoner of war and seeing the terrors of the war firsthand, this movie was undoubtedly going to have something to say. Ishiro Honda, Tsuburaya, Tanaka, and many others put together the details of this film and masterfully showed the world how cruel and terrifying the use of atomic bombs are. The opening sequence starts with a recreation of the Lucky Dragon 5 incident, where a boat was within the radius of the atomic blast contamination, and everyone on board was blind and scarred all over. The fact that this movie started off with this recreation really shows us what Honda intends to discuss in the movie, and it really fascinates me every time I rewatch this film. A lot of the time onwards, until Godzilla's first on-screen appearance, we are put into more of the social climate of post-war Japan, and we kind of get a glimpse of the different people's lives. And we see how the fishermen in the villages are struggling, and especially with Godzilla, wiping out the fish. They're even in a worse situation, and the civilians who just heard about Godzilla are now in fear once again. Right after they got lucky with the escape of the other two bombings that happened years ago, and so on. We really get a good look at the post-war Japanese people lived, how they thought, and how they felt about the use of weapons of mass destruction. Even though we don't get any monster action like a lot of people prefer, seeing the social climate of everyone really gives us a good relation and sympathy for the human characters, even if they're not the main characters. This is the part I really like about this movie, is that it's not much of a monster movie. Since it's majorly focused on the post-war social climate. You can literally replace Godzilla with an atomic bomb in this movie, and the story won't change at all. This is why I adore this film so much. Godzilla represents the atomic bomb, since if they were to use atomic bombs in the film, the whole thing would just get censored, canceled, and all that, and blocked everywhere, especially in the United States, and we wouldn't be at where we are now with this franchise. We wouldn't have all the rest of the movies that we have. Godzilla was used in this film to be a placeholder and metaphor for the atomic bomb, so people can go in expecting a monster flick, when in reality it's displaying the horrors and fear of the atomic bombs by humankind. Well, the rampage scene with Godzilla really emphasizes the immense power and destruction a bomb can cause to a city. He strikes right into the heart of Tokyo, destroying everything and everyone in his path. The military try many different strategies to take him down, but nothing works, leaving everyone hopeless as they watch their city burn and fall apart. The part that sends me and touches me the most is the rampage. During the rampage is with the mother and her two children telling them they'll be with their father soon, as the buildings around them go up in flames. There's so many things to think about during the scene, and it's so short, but there's so much to go into. We don't know how her father died, maybe to the bombs, the war, something else. And how the mother and her children fall into the same doomed fate as Godzilla continues his reign of destruction. The aftermath of the rampage strikingly resembles photos of the aftermath of the atomic bombs, with trees burnt to a crisp, no buildings standing in sight, and everything that was once there just gone. Then we get to the hospital scene, where I just tear up every time. We see the children and adults with the keloid scars from radiation exposure, children with the Geiger counter spiking on their forehead, and the children crying because their mother died. This scene alone shows the cruelty and sadness and the aftermath of the bombs, and it's heartbreaking. It's hard to talk about too, because of just how disturbing and just sad it is. Then we get to Dr. Yamane and Serizawa's perspectives on Godzilla, or essentially the use of the atomic bombs. We get two different views, one on observing Godzilla for science, and another on destroying Godzilla and any destructive weapon for the sake of humanity. The perspective of Dr. Yamane can relate with the scientists of the Manhattan Project, as they proceeded with their experiments for the sake of scientific advancements. And with Dr. Yamane, he wants to preserve Godzilla for the sake of science and learn more about him. Dr. Serizawa's view on Godzilla, which is what Honda wanted us to get out of this movie, and what he does wonderfully is that we see how Serizawa is reluctant to use or even publicly displays his oxygen destroyer, a weapon of mass destruction, in fear that it will get into the wrong hands. near the end, where he decides to use the oxygen destroyer after his sister convinces him and hears the prayer for peace over the radio, we really see the change of heart and how Serizawa decides his fate. The actions by Serizawa are what Honda hoped others in the world would do, and he hopes that the making and using of the bombs will finally come to an end. Nobody else deserved to suffer the way the Japanese did, and we see how Honda wants us to realize that throughout the entire movie. Overall, the two main doctors of the original film are masterfully and beautifully executed, and it really helps to get the message across. And I think they are two of the easiest, best characters in the Godzilla series. Well, the end of the film is also very emotional, as Serizawa says farewell to everyone and sacrifices himself with his weapon, the oxygen destroyer, to save humanity. Then we get the final line of the film where Dr. Yamane says that if the nuclear bomb testing continues, more Godzillas may appear, warning the audience of the potentially dark future that may lie ahead. Overall, the last few scenes of the film really capture the message Honda wants to get across about nuclear testing, and gives everyone a lot of mixed emotions. This movie is really touching and at the same time very depressing and hard to watch consistently because of how it grabs your emotions so much, specifically mine. I also want to briefly discuss the special effects and everything that went into this film, thanks to the gifted Tsuburaya, Tanaka, and Nakajima. The special effects in Gojira really live up to the modern day. I'm going to hold this belief to the grave. I really adore how the special effects were and how everything was put together. It looks scarily realistic and great, but I wouldn't say completely realistic because there are some parts in the movie where the Godzilla puppet looks like Elmo's walking across the street. La 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 la, la 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 la, Elmo's world. But in general though, everyone put a lot of hard work in the special effects, and for the 1950s, this is top tier special effects. Nakajima, like always, did a great job in portraying Godzilla. He did study a lot of animal behaviors before entering the suit, and he did a really great job and put a lot of work into portraying a large monster, and in such a heavy suit. I still think that the fluid movement of Godzilla in the film still holds up to today's standards as well, because it's really hard to find a point where it doesn't look real, other than the puppets. So overall, I think Gojira is easily, objectively, the best Godzilla film we've ever had. Shin Godzilla comes in second place because the two Japanese directors worked on it, so yeah. But to conclude, this movie is an absolute masterpiece. I appreciate the film to the fullest, and if you haven't seen it yet, what are you doing? Watch it right now. This movie will be a movie that will last for generations, and I don't see it being portrayed otherwise, because this movie is just great. That's been my review on Gojira, and I hope you all enjoyed. I'll be back with another video soon, so stay tuned for that.